Hey, First Lavaca and River Valley. Welcome to the First Lavaca podcast. We've got,
we've got to get some kind of sound effect.
There's got to be something. Our sound effect man right here is Pastor Stephen Smith.
Yeah, there you go. That's the only reason I'm in the room today is just to throw in some random sound effects.
And then we've also got special guest Dawayne Stamper.
Hey there.
He is our worship pastor here at First Lavaca, and I am super excited that you're here with us today.
I'm excited to be here.
I have some very important questions to ask you.
All right.
So I'm pretty excited about that. But first,
we've also got John in the room.
Oh,
John's
yeah,
always in the room.
John,
today, John is giving himself a mani-pedi over in the corner.
He's going, no, stop. He is. Don't let him fool you by his mountain man beard.
This is the reason why it's important that we not have video going on during the podcast.
No, John is always here. Eventually, we're going to talk him into doing a podcast as well. But for now, he's just the creeper off in the corner.
That's it.
With the sound bar or the sound. Anyways, so we're going to play today 2 Truths and a Lie. It was so popular the last time. We played it with Brandon, our guest. And I was telling you, Dwayne, you don't have to have some kind of crazy story. I still don't believe. Brandon said he was marooned on an air mattress in the Floridian swamp.
Gilligan's Island.
3-hour
tour there.
There was a scientist and
I can guarantee you that he was. Yeah,
I have nothing like that.
Okay,
nothing like that at all.
So we're going to play like the normal human being version. I can go first. Just to give you an example, 2 Truths and a Lie is where we tell 2 truths about ourselves, and then we also say 1 lie, and then the other people have to try to guess which is our lie. So, what you know about me, you'll have to deduce, the lie. All right, so I love broccoli. That's number 1. I love green beans. That's number 2.
I see Brussels sprouts coming next. All green vegetables.
No, but I love peas.
Is that number 3?
That's number 3.
So I have to decide which of these.
So
is
I love
correct.
broccoli. Okay. I love green beans. I love peas.
Okay, so 2 of those are a truth.
And one of them
is
a lie.
She actually does love.
So you
tells you a lot
remember.
about Kimie, and then 1 is not so.
So now you have to try to remember all the meals we've ever had together, what I've put on my plate and what I have not. So, and I will give you some hints. Once a year on a holiday, I act like a grown-up and I put this item on my plate.
You act like a grown-up.
Yes. I what
you
I say
are a grown-up, Kimie.
No, but I don't act like it usually.
On this. Okay,
yes.
All right.
I prefer to think I have a very refined palate, but when it comes to this item, it makes me want to yak all over the place. But once a year on a specific holiday, I will spoon it onto my plate and give it another try just to see if my palate has changed. So far, it has not.
So I would like to think that you are a green pea negative type person, but I'm thinking of textures, and so I'm going to guess broccoli is the one that you do not like. Dwayne, where you at?
I was actually thinking the same thing. I was trying to figure out what that one time a year, what that would look like, what your plate would look like.
Like broccoli salad is kind of what I'm in my mind. She's looking at going, hey, there's that. But,
hey, you, old friend.
Exactly.
I know for me personally, I don't like really any of those things. So, but I'm also going to guess broccoli.
Well, unfortunately, you're both wrong. Once a year on Thanksgiving, I put green bean casserole on my plate and try not to vomit.
Yeah, I'm not a big green bean casserole person either, but I do love green beans.
No, I can taste it. Once for a baby shower of mine, one of the games was I had a blindfold on and they spoon fed me little bites of baby food and I had to guess what it was. They gave me so much green beans. Pureed. Oh, my word. Like, it makes me sick thinking about it. No, hate green beans.
Is it a texture thing or is it a taste thing?
It just tastes like
Green beans. They're
Green
awesome.
beans.
Yeah.
I don't know. Don't like it. I love peas.
Casseroles make everything better, so even...
Most generally.
I know. And John, see, this is sad because John loves green bean casserole with the crunchy onions on top.
Yeah. Oh,
and
Yeah, I can handle that as well.
all of that. But no, it still tastes like green beans in disguise.
Okay.
Like they are. Oh no, I can't. So anyway,
There you go.
I do believe it's someone else's turn.
All right, Dwayne, you want to go or you want me to go?
I will go.
All right.
Okay.
I will make this somewhat difficult because I can. But I think when people think of me, they think of the guy who plays the piano. So I'm
right.
going to put myself in various situations with the piano, and we've got to decide which one
All right.
Okay. I'm very curious about
yes,
this.
is not correct.
Much better than Brandon. No doubt.
Yes,
This is
already.
so much better.
So here we go. Number one, I have played the piano in a foreign country. Number two, I had a piano malfunction during a funeral. Number three, I have fallen off of a stage while playing piano because the bench was too close to the edge of the stage. So which one of those do you think is
the bench
not correct?
falling off sounds something like I would do.
I already know one that is spot on. So I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let you guess first, Kimie,
Okay.
and then I'm going to throw my guess in.
What was the first one again?
I have
Foreign
played the
country.
piano in a foreign
Oh,
country.
are we talking foreign like India or foreign like Canada?
They're all foreign.
Foreign those
Okay,
Canadian
let me clarify
foreigners.
that. On a different continent. Let's
Oh,
clarify that.
Okay, now we're really
okay.
throwing it out there. John even
I
looked
would-
up from his manicure over
I
there.
know.
He was like,
He's gonna get you at some point. He's gonna get you. You are so incredibly talented, and I know that you tour with. I can't remember.
I do tour with Daniel
bands.
Cruz.
Yes.
Some, yeah.
I would believe that you have played on another continent. I
Okay.
believe that.
I'm on that as well.
I'm gonna guess the malfunction in a funeral. That's gonna be the lie. I like that makes me cringe. Actually, more than the falling off the stage, just because I think every week I plan for that as I'm on stage. It's gonna happen.
So my guess was that you have that was the lie, that you had not fallen off stage.
Okay.
So
So
we've got a split
which
decision here.
is it?
It is actually number one that is the lie. So you're both wrong
Oh
on that
no!
one. Yeah. So yes, one time during a funeral, we were singing along with congregational music, and all of a sudden the bossa nova accompaniment accompaniment came on.
No.
The piano that happened
So it sounded
here.
like you were at a cruise ship. Or
So it
Oh,
was
no.
it was just like, I mean, it
that
was
funeral
not
got
in,
peppy real quick.
it wasn't in time with the song. It had nothing. I mean, it was just very random. I still don't know what happened to the piano in that situation, but I ended up having to turn off the power. It was a digital piano, and I turned it off during the song and tried to reboot it as quickly as I could. And that probably would be my most embarrassing moment.
More embarrassing than falling off the stage.
Yes, that is correct, because I was actually in a rehearsal when
okay.
that happened. I
Okay.
wasn't actually performing.
I've seen those YouTube videos where like things break loose on
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah, luckily this happened before YouTube was a
Yeah.
big thing.
Church musicians
Else I would
gone
probably be
wild.
on there.
Yeah.
But number one, no, I have not played in a different continent.
But you have played around the country.
I played around the country.
That's very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, that's shocking to me.
Shocking.
All right.
What inquiring minds want to
Shocking,
know.
but true. All right, Pastor Stephen. Give us your worst.
So I have eaten ox tongue. I have eaten escargot. And I have done a funeral where, since Dwayne used a funeral story, where I called the deceased the wrong name the entire funeral.
Oh, my word. I just, if you've ever worked at a church or had to perform these things, you know what? That's like what you lay in bed at night and have nightmares about.
It sure is.
Yeah. I'm going to guess number 3.
What is a lie?
I think someone that you know has done that, but not you.
I'm going to guess escargot. I don't think you've had escargot.
I definitely have had ox tongue and escargot.
Oh,
So
good one, Dwayne.
thankfully, it was not me, but I have been in a funeral where that happened, and they were 2 biblical names, and the person that had passed away had they had a biblical name, and the pastor that is a good friend of mine, he referenced another biblical name.
So it was like James,
the
but calling him
entire
John or something.
service, and every
Did
time
no
that he
one
did it,
just go,
no,
buddy?
no one did. No one did, and it was very, very painful to watch. I was actually in the balcony.
You
I was
should
trying
have
to
just
wave him
hollered down.
Trying to wave him down.
Cupped your hands around your mouth and just yelled
It was a very
the name.
very unfortunate scenario.
Yeah.
So thankfully, that's one of those that you watch someone else and you don't embrace yourself.
So where you write it on your hand, their name, so as you're saying it, you can look down.
Literally, that did teach me that day. Always have that name of the deceased in front of you in several places. So I've always got it on my Bible. I've always got it in my notes, and I've got it at the top of my notes so that on every page I see that person. Because sometimes you do get asked to do a funeral of someone that you don't know. Oftentimes, actually. And anyways, that taught me that one day as a young pastor. Don't ever let that happen again. So, anyways, which leads us perfectly into our topic of the day, doesn't it, Kimie?
Our segues are legendary. They're
Impeccable.
Beautiful. Yes, today we're talking about funerals. I'm just kidding. We're not.
That would not have been.
No, sad. No, we're actually talking about worship today with the worship pastor.
Yeah. That's right.
And I am very interested to hear your heart on this. As many of you know, I was worship leader for 15 years and did all of that, and nowhere near as gifted as you are. You are incredibly talented, and I love getting to come up on stage and be a part of the worship that you have already set up for us and worked out and prepared, and it's a huge blessing. I just want to tell you that.
Well, we have a great team here at First and Black. I really do. Really blessed.
We do. So first, this is something that I know a lot of people are confused about, but what is worship? It gets used in so many places. You know, we listen to worship music and we go to our worship service and we put on our worship pants or whatever, you know.
I've never put on my worship pants.
Well, maybe you should. Maybe that's the problem.
That's an interesting concept. Worship
Yeah,
pants.
my worship pants.
Now, David,
we do have our church clothes, right?
Yep.
Like we have our uniform that we wear to worship.
Sure. Yeah.
And so what is worship?
Worship is not the act of doing anything. It's not the act of singing. It's a posture of your heart.
It's not a
Is
style.
what worship
Reflection.
is.
Yeah.
So I think that worship can be accomplished, yes, in a corporate setting. We typically call our services worship services.
Yeah.
Now, just because we say that doesn't mean that we have worshiped.
Right.
When we have attended a worship service.
Right.
I've been to many worship services where I felt like there was nothing
One of the
happening.
last things that occurred,
But really, it's a posture of the heart. It's how we adore the Lord. And we can adore the Lord through helping our neighbor. We can adore the Lord through serving our community. It doesn't have to be through music. And I think that is really confusing because if you think back to the 60s and 70s in the church,
right.
typically if you attended a service, you had someone up front at the podium. They were waving their hand around and looked all fancy, and people thought, wow, this guy really knows what he's doing. He's really educated in whatever. That's an archy word there. In whatever that's going on. So I'm going to follow him. So we called him the music director or the song leader a lot of times in smaller churches. And then as we moved into the 70s and 80s, that same person, we had kind of a switch of name happen, that transition from the music director to the worship pastor. So I think in that there was a little bit of confusion, like, oh, music equals worship, maybe, question mark?
Yeah.
And so I think even now we refer to sometimes the worship. The worship at church was great today.
And people mean music.
People mean the music or the experience of everything that has happened. So worship can be an experience, but it really is only accomplished on an individual level when you personally are enthroning the Lord, giving him glory, not just for what he has done for you, but because of who he is, omnipotent, almighty, Lord of lords, King of kings. So we have to view him on a personal level as that. So
before anything else can be accomplished.
Before anything else can happen.
Yeah.
So to summarize, I feel like that kind of the terminology that we have thrown around in the church has maybe confused that issue just a little bit. But it's something that is on a personal level.
So corporate worship really, it can happen at church on Sunday, but it can just as easily happen on a mission trip on Monday, or with a group of friends that are meeting together at Panera Bread, talking about what the Lord is doing in their life and giving him glory and honor and praise for who he is and for what he's done for them personally.
And here's a step further is I think that when you're at work and you may not love your job and you're sitting there filing away, you can work for the Lord and you can worship in that moment by honoring him, by doing your best and thinking of furthering his kingdom.
Absolutely.
And that can be an act of worship.
Right.
And I think that's where we struggle culturally, because verbiage is where the line has blurred. Right. I guess.
Right.
So from now on, we're going to change the name on the plaque on your door. It's going to be Music Czar, Overlord of the Stage.
How funny.
And do not call him the worship pastor. No, that's not true, because you do prepare a space, which is incredible. So here's another question. Can you worship when you don't feel like worshiping? I guess that's the thing. Someone will come up and be like, I just don't feel it today. And I get that. There are days where our emotions rule us, but what you've said before is that it's not necessarily an emotion.
Well, and what you just said just a moment ago about work being, you go back to the beginning, and before you ever really read, that I can recall, I could be wrong in this, but in the story of Genesis, long before we ever read about anybody singing to the Lord, God gives Adam an opportunity for him to worship. And where's that opportunity at? Work. It's what God first tells Adam. This is what you're supposed to do. You name the animals and do this and do this. And so, work is worship. Ecclesiastes 9, whatever your hand finds to do it with all of your might. Serve, I believe it's in 1 Corinthians, serve as unto the Lord in those settings. And so, I appreciate the question that you're asking here, because I think that it is important. How do I live whenever I don't desire to worship, whenever I don't have that hunger or that passion to glorify God in that thing that I'm doing?
I do think that there's a certain aspect of worship that is a decision, just as in a marriage. There are some days you decide you're going to love this person, even though you may not want to. So to worship in spirit and in truth, I know the Bible talks about that. Truth sometimes is our reality of our present situation.
Yeah.
That it may not be a good place that we're at
Sometimes
mentally.
life sucks.
Really
does.
May have had a bad day. And still at the same time, we make the decision that we're going to worship anyway. We have reasons to count our blessings and to give thanks to him, even when things are falling apart.
Right. God is good, even when life isn't. And so one thing that I've heard and I agree with is that we were created to worship. We were created to glorify God. That is our purpose, to be with him and to give him honor and glory. And so I like the conversation we just had about working and in the beginning, that's why we're here. And so some days we don't feel it and we aren't on this spiritual high. Like you come home from camp or from a concert that's just incredible and your emotions are high. There are going to be those days where you're tired and you're frustrated and you're broken. There are going to be those times where you've really screwed up and you feel far from God. And those moments are just as valid. You know, you're never going to be at a place where you're good enough to be in his presence anyway.
Right. I think in those moments, though, one of the most important things that we can do, and I say it to friends often, but sometimes we have to preach the truth to ourselves.
Right.
And so often, especially as, American Christians, we get so entrapped and almost enslaved by our feelings. I mean, I don't feel like worshiping today. And, in those moments where that feeling is not there, the reality that you talked about just a second ago, Dawayne, is still very, very active but God is worthy of it and he is deserving of it. And I know that for me, whenever there's been those moments, whether it's just I'm not feeling well or I'm tired or that's just one of the last things on my mind. One of the things that has consistently helped me, and I pray that it'll be a help for our listeners, is taking a few moments and just counting the blessings that I have. Oftentimes, whenever, even though God is worthy of our worship, not because of what he's done, but because of who he is, our experience with what he's done in our life sometimes points to that reality of who he is. Yeah. And so, being reminded, God, thank you for this. Thank you for this. Thank you for this. And it doesn't take too long after you've begun to count your blessings sometimes that you begin to get to that posture of your heart where you're seeing, okay, God has really done so much, because so often our eyes are diverted from him because of those frustrating moments that we find ourselves in. Right. God wants to meet us in those. He wants to deliver us from those, or he wants to be glorified in the midst of it. Yeah.
So as we wrap this up, I got a text from one of the teenagers that I am friends with in the youth group. She's an incredible kid, and we've been sharing Spotify playlists. And so she was listening to some of the songs I sent her, and she says it's just so overwhelming, amazing, that a God who lived a perfect life would want me. That even, like, what kind of undeserving love is that? He's seen my fails, my flaws, literally the worst of me, and then he still died for me and is planning on coming to get me again.
Wow. Yeah.
And then moving a step further is he's a God that knows the future fails I'm going to have, right? The future screw-ups, the future life-destroying things that I may do, and still, still he is God, and still he hasn't left, and still he chooses me. He wants me. He's seeking after my heart. And so as we close up, I just want that to be at the forefront of your mind. Why worship? Because he deserves it.
Yep.
Because he is God. To choose it when it's hard, to choose it when it isn't, to remember that you don't just worship in the four walls of the worship center, right? Or when Caleb is turned on,
Right. Yeah.
you know, that you can be worshiping anytime. So,
Yeah.
And honestly, most of the time, that the most genuine worship that we do is whenever we're not in a setting that is conducive towards that.
right.
I think the most genuine worship that we do is whenever we do find ourselves out at work or in the car or in that frustrating moment where we choose, God, I'm going to submit to you because you are God and I'm not. And so I'm turning my life towards you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well,
Love
Dwayne,
it.
thanks for coming in today, man.
thanks
Yeah.
I feel like we just got started with this.
I
subject,
know.
So
That's
there's
what it
much
always
more.
feels
We
like.
need a volume 2. or
We just
episode 2.
peeked under the wrapping of the Christmas present. We haven't fully ripped it off.
So-
We may have to revisit this again.
So the next time that we talk about this with Dwayne, hopefully by that time he will have played on another continent, or he will have fallen off the stage in front of all of us, so that we know what's going on.
I love it. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm excited for next week. We'll be having Brandon come back and chat with us again.
No, just kidding. We love him. We love him.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So have a great week. We'll talk to you next weekend. Thanks for joining us today on the First Lavaca podcast. You can connect with us online at firstlavaca.com and make sure to subscribe to our podcast so that you don't miss out on exciting new content. Have a great week.